It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's the NFL playoffs. They're officially upon us. Welcome to the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. We've been waiting 18 long weeks for this. The playoffs are here. The brackets are set. The Niners have a first-round bye. Everybody's feeling good. Not me. The Vikings missed the playoffs, but let's dive right into it. Let's go look at Week 18's results, and then we'll dive into the wild card preview. Joey, just going to ask you right off the bat, Niners have a bye. You're a little bit worried about them being rusty after what will end up being 3 weeks off. But basically, as you look at the results in Week 18 and what's going on in the first round of the playoffs, what are you thinking as a Niners fan? Do you have any rooting interest in the AFC games? You only focusing on the NFC games? Or are you just like, just tell me who we're playing?
Yeah, probably just tell me who we're playing because, like, other than the natural just fan anxiety of like, okay, now we're here. Better freaking win 2 games in a row to get to the Super Bowl. Like, what? Like, come on. But it's like, no, I just root for like general interest, like maybe there's some certain teams I like or don't like. And because the reality is if this team can't get to the Super Bowl beating these 2 teams at home, then what the hell are we talking about? I mean, I'm like, I've never felt this way about a team, really, especially like the Niners. I mean, they should, 2 home games in the Super Bowl. It's right there, unless barring some drastic injury like last year. They should get there. Now, depending on who they play, do they win? I don't know, because they're not as like, I'm not pounding the table as hard as I was like maybe a month ago. Like, this is the best freaking team in the league. Like, the Ravens pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
They came here and mollywopped us, and Cleveland's no joke. I think those, like I said, 2 best teams in the AFC, in my opinion. But as for the NFC, I'm weirdly way more like eerie about like the bottom half of the conference than the top. Like, I think I am not like, I might eat my words. Like, so this might be a freezing cold take, but like, I am not worried about Dallas or Detroit coming here.
This is
at all.
So I texted the other Niners fan friends in my life, and Johan from the pod last year, our longtime listener, he echoed the same thing that you just said, where he's like, there is no worry about Detroit and Dallas. It's really the Rams that worry him the most. And that's the same, exact same thing you said. My uncle's a huge Niner fan. He kind of feels the same way, where the Rams are who they're most concerned about. I'm like, this is really odd. Like, I can't remember a situation where there's 6 and 7 seeds that people are like, oh, nobody wants to face
even
them.
The Packers. Like, they're young and like hungry enough to just do something dumb, like win a couple games in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And like, but the Rams specifically remind me a lot of the Niners, who had to beat the Rams a couple years ago in 21 to make the playoffs and eventually lost to them in the NFC title game. Like, they're coming in the 6th seed. They're going to play in Detroit. I don't really know too much about like the line. It looks like here it's what, -3.5 for Detroit. That shocks me. I think a lot of people are going to pick the Rams to go in there and win, especially with all the injuries Detroit suffered Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the Niners did that year. They went into Dallas as the 6th seed, and I think a lot of people were picking like Dallas ain't going to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Niners went to Green Bay that year. Rodgers, they were like, what are they, 14-3 or something?
Yeah.
And they were the ones, and they won that game. And like, ironically, I was like pretty confident that game. Like, I didn't want to like be wrong, but like, I'm like, they just don't match up very well against us. And this year, like, I'm afraid the Rams are going to go to Detroit, a dome team, and kind of push them around, run the football on them. Stafford has still got an elite arm. And then they're going to come here and be like, okay, like Sean McVay's elite NFL head coach. And I mean, when they're healthy, I mean, they're damn good. And I just cannot believe that the 3 teams I'm worried about, you would have told me before the season I'd be worried about the Rams, Bucks, and Packers, like Jordan Love, possibly Kyle Trask, and then a team that I legitimately thought the Rams would be like picking in the top 3.
Yeah.
And then Philly, we would demolish them. They're an absolute dumpster fire. And then Dallas and Detroit, like, it's just weirdly I'm not worried as much.
So with the way the schedule breaks down, the first 3 games, the AFC games, the second 3 games, the NFC games, you'll know your opponent possibly at 10 a.m.
Well, I like
Sunday.
how it breaks down that way. Like, the first NFC game is Packers Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if the Packers win, we play them.
Yeah,
So
and
and then it goes to the next
immediately.
one. Like if the Rams win, we play them,
Mm-hmm.
and then if those are like, we'll know we play the winner of the Eagles Bucks, and then we would know that game would be on Sunday because there's no chance in hell they make them play Monday and then Saturday.
Right. And I think I was just about to say, if either the Packers or Rams win, I think your game is going to be the early Saturday game,
Yeah.
without a doubt. So another thing is you might get more time to prepare if, say, Green Bay wins than you would if, Green Bay and the Rams both lose and then Philly wins on Monday night. So fortuitous draw in that the teams that are 2, 3, and 4 seeds are Dallas, who you absolutely spanked, Detroit, whose defense is an absolute sieve right now, and Tampa, who's injured and has been awful the last 2 weeks. Philly's on a slide. Really fortuitous draw for the Niners in that the teams they're afraid of are the 6 and 7, which are,
I don't think that's as like.
So
I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I think we're dead set on seeing the Rams here again.
So Green Bay's a 7-point dog. The Rams are a 3.5-point dog. Vegas is usually close on these things. So as much as we say, oh, it's the Rams that the Niners should be afraid of, or the Packers look pretty frisky, those teams are, the 9 and 8 and 10 and 7, and frankly, the
It's
Rams
more of like, I don't think, like, all I'm saying is Dallas better get out to a lead.
Let's just jump into the games because I really want to talk about that Dallas game because that's the one where we're going to differ the most. We have 6 games here on quote unquote super wild card weekend. We'll start with Saturday's first game. Bill Simmons calls this the Shakey's Bowl. The game that always features the AFC South champ is always the first game on wild card weekend with the lowest ratings.
Feels like it always features the Texans.
Always features the Texans. Every once in a while, they'll throw the Jaguars or Titans in there. But if it's the Texans, it's the Saturday early game. It's Cleveland -3 at Houston. You said this right when it broke that way after Houston's win. This could have been Deshaun's return, but instead, we're getting America's quarterback, Joe Flacco, versus the new generation star, C.J. Stroud. This is the Coach of the Year matchup. Right now, if you look at betting sites, there's only 2 candidates that you can bet on for Coach of the Year, and it's Kevin Stefanski and DeMeco Ryans. It's basically a head-to-head. One of those 2 guys is going to win the award. I think we're a little bit split on this one, too, because I like Houston at +3. I know you're all over Cleveland.
I do, but I don't think it necessarily means a blowout or like a double-digit win. Cleveland, their team right now, travels anywhere. Not that you need to travel, pack a defense and a running game for a dome like Houston is, but like I just know they're going to show up and play really good defense and run the football. And Joe Flacco's been like damn good. And on the other hand, though, like I know exactly what DeMeco's capable of, and he'll have them ready. And C.J. Stroud is going to be a runaway Rookie of the Year.
There's been a lot of talk about the Texans being one of those classic happy to be there teams. Like there's been Texans teams in the past, like that one where T.J. Yates was the quarterback or Schaub early on, where they seem happy to be there. They're the 4 seed. They're like, hey, we get to host a playoff game. I don't think that a DeMeco Ryans coach team with that talented of a quarterback, and by the way, a wide receiver in Nico Collins who's like going off for like 180 every week. I think he finished the year as like the 6th best fantasy wide receiver out of nowhere. I had no idea who that was coming into the season, but they got weapons. They got a hell of a quarterback and a great coach. I think it's going to be a close one. That's a game that I think we're going to differ on, but like my prognostication there would be Flacco. I mean, he's 38. Even when he was in his prime, every once in a while he would have an absolute stinker, but that 2012 run is still in everybody's mind when it was is he elite? Yeah, for you that was suboptimal, as they would say. But that's the first matchup.
A better game than I thought.
Yeah,
because I was pretty convinced Cleveland was at least winning a couple playoff games, but I don't know.
If this had been Jacksonville, I'd be all over Cleveland here. I just think Houston is a live dog just because they got a coaching staff and a quarterback that are just like in the ascendancy, whereas Jacksonville was shitting their pants there at the end of the season. The Saturday Peacock game. This, by the way, they spent the Cock Bowl. Yeah. They spent $200 million, NBC did, to buy this game and move it to Peacock.
It's a shit game. I mean, honestly.
It's unbelievable. It's
And then it said
Miami
it's
at
going to be like
Kansas
0
City.
degrees at kickoff.
Yeah, Miami at Kansas City. Kansas City's favored by 4. So this is forecast to be the coldest NFL game since the Vikings-Seahawks 2015 playoff game, which was played outdoors in those 2 years in
I
between
remember that.
the domes in Minnesota, the Blair Walsh game. That game was like -8 at kickoff with some wind. This one's supposed to be 0 at kickoff with
You know
wind.
what I think about that game is like it was cold, but like wasn't it like a nice day?
Yeah, it was like sunny.
Like,
yeah.
like no, it's just freaking cold. Like
I'll never forget.
Like the snow, everything. Like there's been a couple like Buffalo games where it's like, oh my god, we can't even see the lines on the field, like the snow. This one looks like it looks like if you couldn't see their breath, like you would think it might be like 40 or 50 degrees. Like, no, it's 0.
I'll never forget. Cold. So the game was a 10 a.m. game, so it started noon local time in Minnesota. Bud Grant, I think, was in his early 90s at the time. He came out in a T-shirt to flip the coin to start the game. And that was like, at that point, I was like, we're going to win this game. 90-year-old former coach comes out and is like, this ain't cold. And then, of course, Blair Walsh yanked the field goal. But I'll never forget that game. Every single player from Bridgewater to Blair Walsh to every Seahawk, they're wearing the full like balaclava where only the eyes are showing because it was like frostbite conditions. That's how cold it was. This game on Saturday in Kansas City, 7 p.m. local start there is supposed to be as cold as that. Now, I wanted to ask you, I lean Miami +4 here just because they have a far better run game than Kansas City does, but they've also been on a slide, but so is KC. Do you think the weather helps or hurts Miami in this case, given that they're a team that can run the ball far better than Kansas City can?
You're right, but there's no way it helps them. There's no way. A team from Miami going to Kansas City, and like Tua especially being Mr. like he was always barefoot on Hard Knocks, like he's Mr. Hawaiian, like I'm sorry, like especially being a Northern Californian out here, like we don't do the cold. Like, yeah. Like, I mean, that's partly why, Jared Goff, like he went to Detroit, he's doing so well. Like he's Mr. California kid. He's the same thing. Derek Carr, California guy, he goes out in the cold and he just can't function.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right with the running game because it's a lot better than Kansas City's.
Traditionally you would see
if it wasn't for Philadelphia, Miami is an
all-time
tank job right now. I know they have a lot of injuries.
And it's the same thing that happened last season as well. They started, I believe, 8-2 last year and finished 9-8. Complete collapse last year, mostly due to injury. This year, yeah, there's some injuries there, but also Tua didn't get him over the line. So traditionally for a game like this, you would go, oh my God, Miami's going to get waxed because they're a warm weather team going to a cold weather team. But people, I'm seeing all these analysts picking Kansas City to just roll in this game. The last time we saw Kansas City, they were shaky as all hell. So, like, I don't understand why they would be a 4-point favorite.
They were awful on Christmas.
Yeah, against the Raiders. It was an absolute disaster. So, pretty odd situation here where you have the cold weather team with Mahomes, with Andy Reid at home against a team that's reeling, and yet I have no confidence in betting them. Really weird game. Let's see if NBC can break even and get whatever 4 million people to subscribe.
Which one is Tirico calling?
I would imagine it would have to be that one. There's no way they would send him for the
Cleveland. Because they also got the Sunday night one. Are they doing both?
I know they're doing Saturdays, both games,
and Sunday
night. So maybe, who would they have? Who's NBC's third?
I don't even know who's her second crew. Is it that Iron Eagles kid?
Oh God, I hope not. What another freaking nepo
and then
baby
the college dude from
industry.
ESPN who came here.
Watch it be Jack Collinsworth.
Todd Black.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to actually let's pull that up because I kind of do want to know.
Remember last year they had Al Michaels, but like they already came out this year and said like, "Go home, old man."
Yeah, he had a tough year, and they were like, "Yeah, this is probably it for you."
Can you imagine him doing the Peacock game? Like, I'm out here, I'm like 85 years old. It's freaking cold, and this game's on the Cock channel. I've fallen a long way from the 1980 Miracle on Ice.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm actually not seeing it on the on the awful announcing side. So maybe they haven't even come up with a plan yet, because last year, yeah, they did have Al Michaels on there, which was a good throwback, but let's see what they go with for those first two games. The Sunday morning game, we have Pittsburgh at Buffalo. Pittsburgh, I mean, lucky to get in, and then super unlucky to have TJ Watt be out for this game with an MCL sprain. Buffalo's favored by 9.5. Another one that, when this game opened, the total was set at 43. It's down to 35. That's because they are forecasting 30 to 50 mile an hour winds at game time for this game, and another one with the wind chill that could be sub-zero. So we're talking two back-to-back Saturday night, Sunday morning of the coldest games in NFL history. So this is going to be wild. To me, when you see weather like that, it favors the underdog. And
this one, I do think it favors Pittsburgh more than it favors Miami.
Right, because Buffalo is a team that, I mean, they have run the ball better in the second half of the season. They're not necessarily a ground and pound. Yes, they can run Josh Allen, but they're a team that likes to throw the ball deep downfield. Pittsburgh can't do that with Mason Rudolph. This is going to be a low-scoring game. There's no doubt about it. Do you have a side here you favor? Because obviously Buffalo is way better than Pittsburgh. But
Buffalo, yeah. I mean, I can't believe Pittsburgh made the play. I feel like Pittsburgh is just perennially that seventh team in these like new age seven, and they just go there and just get whooped. Like,
happened in 2021 with Roethlisberger, where you were like, "Oh, he played his final game."
Did you go to Kansas City? That one?
And got absolutely spanked.
Yeah, no, it should be Buffalo. But this is a bigger like topic. I was really thinking about it because you kind of see it in baseball where like you play, a certain type of way all season. They get to the postseason. Like, especially if you're a team, like, I feel like I always see it like in Minnesota, especially when they went outdoors at Target Field, like, oh, it's just about to be just freaking cold day. And it's just like, I wonder, like, in football, like, how fair is that? Because there's a reason why they put all these big, like, college bowl games, like, in domes, SoFi, Arizona, Dallas, New Orleans. And it's like, some of these, it's like, cool, we're going to play all season, get home field advantage. What's our first game? Oh, it's going to be 0 degrees, 30-mile-an-hour winds, and like, nope, can't throw the ball. Like the
fans in the stands their lives will be threatened by how cold it's going to be.
Well, fine. It's just like, it's almost like, well, why should we invest in like a good offense or skill positions? Like, if we get to the postseason, like, just going to be just freaking cold, and like these guys won't be able to we won't be able to complete a pass. I don't know. It's just odd. I would never want it to change, but I just wonder about that. Like, if you get like Kansas City, like, sweet, we have this coach, this quarterback, and like, usually before this season we had a sweet offense, and it's like, all right, cool. Game plan is we're going to run it 150 times because we can't do anything else. And yeah, I don't know.
I love it. It's part of the reason I love the playoffs is these legendary games where it's like bone-chillingly cold and, the toughest team wins, which is great. I guess a lot of the NFC is going to go through warm weather and domes. I mean, each of the top 4 seeds in the NFC plays in either warm weather for the Niners and Tampa or domes for Dallas and Detroit, and then even the Rams play in a dome too. So the AFC is going to be wild, just in that the 1, 2, 3, the 1, 2, and 3 seeds are all playing in.
I'm just trying to think, like, in the NFC, like you said, I guess potentially Seattle gets more rainy than cold, like really cold. But like usually like Packers, Bears, Philly, the Bears have been terrible, and the Packers, like with Rodgers and Devontae Adams, like all these guys, like they lost a lot of home playoff games.
Yeah,
relative to like how good they were.
I mean, you were talking
like
about the 2021 game, yeah,
too, like. And I just wonder, like, cool, if we had a dome, I know, like, Lambeau Field, like, historic Lambeau Field's like, well, if you had a dome, maybe, like, your quarterback wouldn't be, like, freezing his dick off. And, like, he could, like, throw the ball. Like, I'm not making excuses, like, play better. But I'm just saying, like,
And what was the one year that Aaron Rodgers actually had success and won the Super Bowl? It was the year they were the 6th seed. Yep. And then played every game on the road.
In Chicago, the NFC Championship game, I think, that was when Jay Cutler, like,
quit. Yeah, he got hurt, and I actually remember the 2 quarterbacks who came in because the second guy got hurt and the third guy came in. It was Todd Collins who came in first, and then he got hurt, and then Caleb Haney, because I remember I hated the freaking Packers so much, especially Rodgers back then, and I was like, all right, come on, Caleb Haney, you can do this. That was one of the most bizarre games. It was just like the Niners NFC Championship, where you're on the third or fourth quarterback, and you're like, hey, we have nobody left. That was a wild one.
Anyways,
I lean Buffalo there just because they're so much of a better team. But I'm going to keep my eye on that forecast because 9.5 points. If you're a favorite that big, and it truly is like 50-mile-an-hour winds, like that game Buffalo New England on Monday Night Football a few years ago, where it's like the Patriots only threw the ball 3 times all game, I might have to keep an eye on that. Let's go into the Sunday afternoon slate. You got Green Bay at Dallas. Dallas is favored by 7. This is where we're going to differ a little bit here. So you were saying last week, you're saying again this week, tight sphincters are coming in Dallas, especially if Green Bay gets out to an early lead. There are going to be some quivering butts down there in Dallas. I actually think Dallas is just going to absolutely blow the doors off Green Bay in this game. I am going to pick them -7 in our picks later. I just think their offense is so much better than Green Bay's defense that I just don't see a way where Love can keep up with that, especially with Dallas having a defense that ball hawks and gets a lot of turnovers. But you probably lean the underdog here, huh?
I mean, I don't lean them to like win or anything, but like. Well, if I was Dallas, I'd be lucky I wasn't seeing the Rams, because if the Niners wouldn't have just quit in the second half, the Rams would be going to Dallas, and that's the game I want. The Niner game Sunday was so weird to watch. You're just like, I want to win because like we go back-to-back years like going undefeated in the division. Like I love beating the Rams. Like, it's plus like you play to win the game, and then you're out there, you're like, oh my God, please don't get hurt. Like clearly, like. Sean McVay, as soon as Puka Nacua, that was a joke. They're trying to get him the record, which they should. Good for him. Seems like a fantastic kid. The Niners would like triple team him, like and they were just running screens and slants. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, and then as soon as he catches the ball that gets in the record, you see they had the camera on McVay, and he's like, get him out, get him off the field. And I'm like, what game is this? And then he ran Carson Wentz 17 times.
Yeah. He said, Carson Wentz, go be Josh Allen.
I'm like, if that doesn't scream, like, get out of here, like, I don't care. I don't know what does. But because of that, the Rams get to go to Detroit, which I think, they probably would rather do. And the Dallas gets the Packers. But I just think the Packers are maybe young and naive enough to think to just kind of like, oh, we're here. Like, there's no pressure on the Packers. They've had a phenomenal year compared to, like, what people like could have thought, and Jordan Love looks more than
second
competent
in the NFL in passing touchdowns. Insanity.
But yeah, oh boy, like if they quick 3 and out by Dallas or something or anything, like, I mean, there's literally no more pressure than I think even more than the Niners,
right?
For Dallas.
I mean, the last time Dallas was a top seed, a 1 or 2 seed, they blew it against Green Bay at home in the 2016 playoffs when Dak was a rookie after that insane sideline throw from Rodgers to Jared Cook.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, this is probably Dak's last best chance.
Jordan Love.
Yeah.
Which, who knows? He could be a guy.
God, I hope not. I mean, it's been 35 years straight of great Packers quarterbackery, and I'm like, please let this end. So we're going to differ on that one. We'll see if that makes it into the picks of the week. Then the big boy. This is a game we've been talking about on the horizon for weeks. You said, hey, maybe wouldn't that be wild if that happened? And it did. Rams at Detroit.
Oh, by the way, I know we're going to go with Stafford going back, but like, no one's really talking about Tyreek Hill going back to Kansas City.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that either. That's a really good angle too.
They probably didn't because it's going to be freaking cold and he might be useless.
He's going to be bundled up in like Ralphie's brother in A Christmas Story, where he's just like can't feel his legs because he's got 15 jackets.
I wonder if maybe they don't, because they just cannot afford to get him hurt. But like, if they can't throw it, like, why don't you run some, like, literally just like some Deebo Samuel toss plays? It's Tyreek Hill.
That's what I was also thinking. Just Mostert left, Achane right. All
was
game
Mostert
long.
Playing?
They say Mostert is likely to play, and Waddle's a possibility. I know Achane is playing, and I think he's just as good as Mostert. He just doesn't get the goal line carries. That one will be wild. I didn't even think about that. This is Tyreek's first game back in Kansas City in a playoff game.
Right. I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking he plays it. The other one was in Germany.
Yeah, and Kansas City barely squeaked that one out too, so that'll be a good one.
So, yeah.
But let's get to the big one. Rams at Detroit. Detroit's favored by 3.5. This is Joey's lock of the millennium here with the Rams plus 3.5.
I think the Rams are going to hammer them. I hope I'm wrong.
Detroit's defense is a disaster. So they gave up 800 passing yards to Nick Mullins, and it could have been a lot more.
And he got benched. They're like, not good enough against this team.
Mullins was benched after his performance where he threw 411 yards the first game. Hall was so bad against the Packers, they brought him back. He threw for I think it was 396 through the first 46 minutes of the game. And then after that, it was just a shit show. But I was like, he could throw for 500 in this game. And that's Nick frickin' Mullins. Does the Stafford Goff revenge angle, this is a question I want to ask you, does that have any kind of impact on the game, or is this like a media thing? Is it just is that going to be a distraction?
No, I mean, there's no way that there's not going to be some buzz in this. There's no way Stafford's going to feel something when he goes back, but even more so, there's no freaking way Jared Goff doesn't want to shove it down the Rams for basically not only just trading him, but saying yeah, dude, we hate you. Not personally, but just we think you suck.
They benched him for John Wolford in a playoff game.
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is, at that position, it's really not like a angry revenge type of position.
Mm-hmm.
If it is like Brady had it, he would drum it up sometimes.
Right.
He was very controlled and poised about it for the most part until he started screaming on the sideline or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't what's Jared. I don't know. Is Jared Goff's not going to run over a linebacker? I don't, and
I don't really think Stafford has any angle. The problem is
the one guy who does know Jared Goff is Raheem Morris,
mm-hmm.
and I just
think McVay.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they know everything about that guy and what makes him tick. That's going to be an angle, but I think the whole Stafford having any animosity towards the Lions is way off. I think.
Oh, he's got none.
Yeah, I think.
I just mean just weird going back.
And the Lions fans too being oh, there's our old franchise quarterback who we still love, and we got to pretend that we love Goff more than him, and this is our first playoff game in 30 years. It's like a guy who he was with a supermodel and now he's with just a regular woman. He's like, no, Jared's great. We like Jared Goff. He's great.
What are they going to say? They want a Super Bowl. Even if Jared wins this game, what are the Rams going to be like? We still would rather have Stafford, and we want a Super Bowl.
I just feel Detroit fans.
But it would feel really good for Jared Goff. Feel damn good.
Yeah, 30 years for Detroit to host a playoff game, and if they
did
lose
you see the
Stafford,
ticket prices?
Insane.
The get-in price is damn near $600,
and Detroit,
which is 200 more than the next highest game.
I saw a TikTok the other day that Detroit is the third least money per capita of any city.
I was about to say, that's a lot of money.
In Detroit, that's a ton of money, and it's that shows you how excited they are to finally. That's the first playoff game.
$600 to watch your team get rolled. That's crazy.
It's the first playoff game at Ford Field, and that stadium's been there for 25, 26 years. The last playoff game they hosted there was at the Pontiac Silverdome, which is now rubble. It's damn, that's pretty rough. I as much as we're going to bet on the Rams and we think the Rams win this one, and I'm a Viking fan, I still am probably going to pull for Detroit here just because those fans.
I'm pulling for Detroit.
If they were to lose this game.
Someone else do our dirty work. I mean, I shouldn't be this nervous about a team that just division games are weird. I don't want to see a division team in the postseason.
You don't want to see McVay after he's had postseason success against you in the past. I totally get it. Let's wrap it up with a Monday night game. Basically the same situation for Tampa that they've had the last 4 years.
As much as the Texans are the Saturday NBC wild card, the Tampa Bay Bucks are the Tampa Bay Monday Nighters.
It's so true. Last year they played Dallas and got absolutely rolled in the final game of Brady's career. The seasons before that, they played Philly in the wild card round at home and Washington on the wild card round on the road. So it's always Tampa Bay against an NFC team to finish up the first week of the playoffs. Here we get it again. Philly's favored by 3, despite being on the freaking mother of all slides. I've seen it referred to as the curse of Big Dom, because the Eagles are 1-5 since he was kicked off the sideline. thought that was pretty funny, but like there is some truth to that game against Buffalo. It has been just an absolute tire fire for Philly since then. Do they have any chance of righting the ship here against what I think is a pretty freaking mediocre Tampa team?
Sadly they do, because they're playing Tampa. Granted, they were playing the Arizona Cardinals at home, and that didn't help. And then they played the New York Giants, who suck. And it was 24. It was a wrap. They made Philly quit.
And that was with most of Philly's starters playing in the first.
Yeah. If you did like a fantasy draft of those two teams, the Eagles might be like the first like 15 picks. I mean, maybe throw Saquon in there like Andrew Thomas or something, but they're awful. I saw a graphic on the Bleacher Report app. It's on the Eagles fan page that showed the graphic of the first quarter stats of the Niners Eagles, where like the Niners had -6 yards and was 6-0 Philly. And then they're like, well, I don't know what wizardry happened after this quarter, but ever since then, it's just been shit. If you're an Eagles player, coach, fan, any sort of rooting interest in the team, and it is. I mean, they just have been on an. It's just crazy because like everyone from coaches to players to media is like this is like this train is moving so fast downhill. Like no one, like everyone knows they don't have the answer, which is crazy.
I saw Colin.
Although
Coward.
does AJ Brown play? Because if he doesn't,
I don't think so. I certainly don't think so. That looked like a significant knee injury to me. They're saying he's questionable. I don't think there's any way he plays in that game. And if he does, he's super limited. Colin Coward was saying on his show today, he thinks there's a legitimate chance that if this is a Tampa Bay route, that Sirianni could be out 1 year after
he should be
championship.
He should be. I don't. You know, I hate when you say like, "Oh, he wins," right? He wins. You know who also won a lot? Jimmy Garoppolo, and everyone was free to pick up. Well, it ain't because of him. Like maybe they're winning, and it ain't because of you, Nick. Like you had two what apparently seems like pretty darn good coordinators. Like,
look at what Steichen did.
What do you do? Like you say, it's your offense. You don't call plays. You have nothing to do with the defense. It's an absolute joke. Apparently, you fired Sean Desai for a guy who's way worse. In Matt Patricia.
Patricia's been awful. And then Steichen, if you look everywhere,
your team is sloppy. I don't care how cool of a nice guy Big Dom is. Your guy on the sideline getting into something. I'm not going to say a fight. It wasn't really all that much. Like your sideline is acting up. Like you're like John Harbaugh's a CEO head coach. Like he doesn't, have offense. He just runs the ship. It's a tight ship. You don't run a tight ship, and you don't have you don't call plays, and you don't. What do you do? Like, what do you do? Like, serious question. Like, you better not be getting dumb penalties. You better not be having miscommunication that results in timeouts.
You cry at the national anthem. I mean,
what do you do?
So tough spot for the Eagles there. The only problem is like Tampa. I mean, they've been awful the last 2 weeks. 9 points against Carolina last week. It was enough to win the division. But with Baker seemingly hurt, apparently shoulder and knee, he's not going to be 100% in this game. It's a tough one to handicap. I probably lean Tampa, but
this is why I don't want to root for Dallas. Like if they do win, which I think they do, and like really rooting for Detroit, the Niners are either going to get a just shit banged up Philly team or just a bad Tampa Bay team,
which it would be
with maybe hurt, and it's like okay, cool.
That would be phenomenal. That's the
and then you get Detroit or Dallas, who, like, whatever. I sound like we're gonna lose one of these teams. I'm gonna sound like an absolute jackass, but you know what? Like, eventually you got to stick your neck out there, and like if that happens, if the Niners get to play Philly or Tampa and then lose to Dallas or Detroit, and they don't reach the Super Bowl, we got big problems.
Yeah,
we got big problems.
You probably got one. Yeah, this is the year. I mean, maybe you have one more year with Purdy on the rookie deal next year.
I'm trying to think, like losing to the Ravens in the Super Bowl, I might be able to tolerate.
Maybe,
depending on how it goes. You can't get whooped again like Christmas. But like you said, like everyone says, oh, the Eagles will be back. Jalen Hurts, young guy, look, Nick Sirianni. Well, like 1 year later, the shit has hit the fan. Like that was a quick run. Like you just never know when you're getting back. I don't care if you're Mahomes or whoever.
When you're a 1 or 2 seed in the NFL, and I have learned this as a Vikings fan, that's your shot. Like there ain't going to be another shot. We had one in 2017. We had one in 2009. We had one in 2000. We had one in 98. Those are the only times in my life we had a first round bye. All 4 times we made it to the NFC Championship game. All 4 times we lost. Like those chances do not come very often. Granted, this is the Niners' 4th chance in the last 6
I saw
years.
something and I didn't realize it, but I read something that the Niners, like the last 5 or 6 times they've made the playoffs as a team. This goes back to like even Harbaugh years. Mm-hmm. They've won 2 games every time.
Mm-hmm. 2013.
Some of them have been like win the divisional round with a bye, and they get to Super Bowl. Some of them have been wild card division losing, but they've won 2 games every time, dating back to I think the last time maybe was like when they beat the Saints in that, like probably my most famous like game I've ever seen. Yeah, and then lost to Kyle Williams.
Yeah. I was gonna say you lost to Eli, but you really didn't. It was your boy Kyle Williams.
But still, like that's a conference championship at the time. Yeah,
you haven't been eliminated in the divisional round since the frickin' Dennis Erickson days or something. It's been that long.
Yeah, I remember we beat Tampa, I think.
I remember you beat the Giants with Jeff Garcia on that crazy
play.
Was
the one that tackled him on the botched field goal. Yeah, that was such a flag.
that was like the first referee crisis I remember as a kid, where you're like, "How is?" I
don't see. The thing is, like, I remember watching it being a kid, but I don't remember like the magnitude of like what the hell was that. Like,
you just remember like, "Yay, Jeff Garcia!"
You just see if that play happened now on social media, what an absolute just tire fire it would be on the internet.
Oh my God! I think the comparison to that is the 2019 NFC Championship with
that was bad
pass interference. Yeah, that was. Oof. All right, so we just went through each of the 6 games on Super Wildcard Weekend. Obviously, we differ on a couple, but Joey knows what he's rooting for as a Niner fan, and I only have bets to root for as my Vikings are toast. Let's head over to Joey's Jack and the Bum of the Week. Final one of the regular season, and I think there's a clear number 1 here. I'm going to give you a few candidates, though, anyway. The Seahawks locker room. I sent this to you. I sent this to Evan. They were eliminated after a barely squeaking by 21-20 win against Arizona. It wasn't enough because Green Bay won. That didn't stop, I believe it was either 9 or 10 Seahawks players in the locker room from lighting up cigars at the end of the season. You're eliminated. You didn't even make the playoffs.
I know, but like honestly, I saw an article about it, and it makes me think differently of it. Because I don't know if Evan like knew this, but I guess Julian Love, one of their players, like had a baby recently, and like someone bought him cigars to like have with some of his teammates, and they waited until now to actually smoke them because they didn't want to do it during the season, which I guess I kind of understand, but you waited like 0.5 seconds after your season's over.
Yeah.
In the locker room, which I don't like.
A season where you were
already
expected to win 10 plus games.
Just wait till I get back to Seattle, like on the plane or something. That was weird. Still not as dumb as popping champagne for an in-season tournament title, but
or winning the AL wildcard game and popping champagne when you still have 3 full rounds of playoffs to go.
No, what's even dumber than that is when they pop. Don't they pop champagne like even if they win like September 20th and like win to go?
Oh
to the
yeah,
playoffs?
they clinch a wild card spot and they pop champagne. Then they win a 1-game playoff and pop champagne, and then they win the ALDS. A lot of the
champagnes.
I mean, it's like, yeah, clearly Moet or whoever, Perrier, Jouet, they're all making their money off of the MLB and frickin' LeBron popping bottles after winning the in-season tournament. So the Seahawks there, obviously there's a different backstory, but it's just a bad look. Like, why anyone would do that in view of the media again? Terrible look. Your team just got eliminated. Dumb. So dumb. Such an unforced error there. Speaking of that, Dennis Allen is a nominee here, not because of anything he did, but because of his lack of control of that team. So they're up, I believe it was 41-17 with a minute left and no timeouts for the Falcons. All they have to do is knee the ball to win the game. They hand the ball off. Winston does to Jamal Williams, who hadn't had a touchdown all year. His teammates really wanted him to get a touchdown, so they
Oh, is that why? I didn't know that.
They faked taking a knee, but handed it off to Williams, and he plunged in for a touchdown. So Arthur Smith is livid in the postgame handshake. He's just screaming at Dennis Allen. And I overheard this during as it happened live on Red Zone and wondered what the hell that was about. Dennis Allen was yelling at Arthur Smith, "I agree with you." I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? After the game, he goes, yeah, Winston and some of the guys, they went rogue. I told them to take a knee, and they didn't listen to me, and they ran the ball up the middle. And I was like, has that ever happened in the NFL in recent memory where a play that gets called into the headset is completely ignored by the team? Like, that's a major,
I feel like that happens quite a bit, but like not in that scenario. Like I feel audibly? Like Tom Brady probably would have got a play call, and then he's like, no, fuck this play. Or like Rodgers, like would get a play from McCarthy and be like, oh, this play, I'm calling audible.
Mm-hmm.
But like no one cares.
But this is a kneel down in a 27
like
point
audible
game.
Out of a kneel down. Like that's some Madden shit.
Yeah.
That's some like
running a fake Madden punt up by 40. That's the Madden shit right there. So Dennis Allen, who's completely lost his team, I wonder if there's any chance he gets fired because they were pretty lifeless this year. He hasn't been yet. We'll see if he hangs on there. Just a uninspiring coach. And then Doug Peterson, who oversaw a massive collapse. They were 8-3. The Jaguars, they went 1-6 down the stretch and missed the playoffs. Total disaster there in Jacksonville, and someone has to pay for it. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence. We put up the stats, or I sent you the stats earlier today. If you just compare his career win-loss record, completion percentage, yards per game, touchdowns to interceptions ratio, he's worse than Mac Jones by every noticeable metric. So, yikes. I mean, big yikes for him. Big yikes for Doug Peterson, who just missed out making the list after his collapse. But the aforementioned Nick Sirianni is going to be the winner here.
Jack in the bum could be of the year, Nick Sirianni, for reasons already mentioned. But yeah, I think he's legitimately in danger of being fired, especially if they get rolled. But even if they lose, like, boy, it just feels really. It feels like they don't even like each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have to, but like, I feel like it helps. Could be wrong. Breaking news. I feel like it helps. I mean, I think Tom and Bill might have hated each other sometimes, and like the players might have hated the Belichick. But like, I don't know if the players ever hated the players. Like, one of my things I have done the last couple of weeks, because I kind of enjoyed the Eagles' downfall a little bit.
I think we all did.
Yeah, and I listened to some fan podcasts, and like, not fan, they're like beat writers, but like it's definitely like they're fans of the team, like also write for them. And this guy, he was like saying, like, we for some reason give Jalen Hurts a pass, like we should. He was arguing that we shouldn't for his play on the field, because like, boy, you're not getting $50 million worth of quarterback play right now from Jalen Hurts. But he was all saying like this, like, oh, they were never questioning like his leadership in it. Like, he was all like off the field, like, oh, stand up A+ guy. And like his point was like, guys, if you really think about it, this is like, we are redoing the end of the Carson Wentz experience. Like he was saying, there's stuff that like his teammates think he's like not a part of the team, like the way he like leads, or like he's very isolated. Like he doesn't really. Again, doesn't hang out with the team like on dinners and stuff. Like, again, I'm just listening to this random guy. Well, he's not random. He writes for I think NBC Philly or whatever. But I was like, I thought Jalen was like Mr. Buttoned Up, like, Nick Saban, like say the right things, leader. And like the Eagles are saying like, nope, like we're off the rails here, and he's like nowhere to be found.
Well, he's just like the most stoic dude you've ever seen. It doesn't matter if he just had 6 touchdowns or 5 picks. He is dead silent with no emotion on the sideline. So it's like, maybe that doesn't play well when you're getting housed
maybe
every
it
week.
Doesn't play well like some of the team, like some of their players seem like pretty I'd say like, I don't know the right word, like I don't know, passionate player. Not to say Jalen's not, but like
rah guys.
You that's I don't know, looking for a fancy word. That's just rah. Like, AJ Brown probably likes to talk. Like the offensive line's putting out, like they have personality. Offensive line puts out a Christmas, album out every year, whatever. Like Brandon Graham is like every time I see an NFL mic'd up is like talking trash the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Hassan Reddick, like they all have some stuff to them.
Yeah,
like some juice. Even their coach, Big Dom. Like, of course that's Philly. Of course that's the Eagles. And it's like Jalen Hurts is like he's trying to run for president as the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm like, could you if I was an Eagles fan, I'm sure they feel like this. Could you throw a chair or something?
Snap a clipboard.
Like, no one loves to see Tom like break the iPad, but like it's the only way fans know how to quantify, like, do you care? Like, do you care that we are in like an all-time free fall right now, Jalen, if you're an Eagles fan? Because it looks
when you say an all-time free fall, I was racking my brain before the pod to try to think of a team that had this kind of a collapse and yet still made the playoffs and has this bad of a negative vibe heading into the playoffs, and I couldn't think of any.
I mean, I think, was it the COVID year or something that like the Steelers were like 10-0 and like everyone's like, nah, that ain't it.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. Like people 10-1 with Philly when they were 10-1, people were like, oh, they just know how to win. Like they believed it. Like
the infrastructure,
the gritty, just head coach and quarterback combo know how to win.
They went down to Wawa and got some sandwiches there.
And then everyone's like, yeah, they're also down at halftime every game and they're giving up like 1 billion yards on defense. And yeah, I mean, it finally caught up to them, I guess. But like, I thought it was going to catch up to them, but I thought it was going to catch up to them and they would finish like 13-4.
Yeah. And then next year would be the year of reckoning. And it's like, no, it just happened immediately after the Buffalo game. Niners waxed them, the Giants waxed them. It's like, damn, major.
Yeah, Dallas, problems. Like, just not even close. And yeah, I just
and it falls on Sirianni. Yes,
which again,
we want to blame
they also
Hurt,
made this point in the podcast, and I didn't have a real good rebuttal to it. But they said, "What's the difference between Nick Sirianni and Mike McDaniel?"
McDaniel's more likable,
right? Other than that, he seems like he's cooler. He calls plays, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he does something, whether or not they work or not, which I guess, who knows? Would you rather call plays and then have they not work or just don't call plays at all? I don't think Miami's plays aren't working. I just think they're injured. Plus, like, I just think when it comes down to it, like, no one in like Tua is never going to beat sniff Josh Allen's quarterback tier.
Yeah.
Like, there's only so much you can do. Kayla's cousin texted me. He said he saw something on Twitter. Said Tua is Hawaiian Tim Tebow.
Okay.
And I'm like, put some respect on Tebow's name. He won a playoff game. Tua.
Oh. Okay. I'm not necessarily a Tua stan here, but I won't allow that kind of slander. I still think he's a good player. He's a top 14, 15 quarterback. He is not a top 5 guy.
The problem is that's one of my biggest pet peeves, like in sports, is when someone says, oh, he's top 5, and then like if you count all the names you said in the top 5, your top 5 is like a top 24.
Yeah.
And like you have to nail it down.
Yeah.
Like people say like, oh, Tua, he's top 10. I'm like, really? Is he? Because when you start naming them, like
you're like, oh well, he's actually 11th or 14th or something. Yeah. It kind of has to be that way. But back to the point with Sirianni, I think before the season, if people were to try to compare Sirianni, they would say he is a John Harbaugh type where he is the CEO there and he runs the ship. And it's a very talented roster that he keeps together as the glue. After a season like this, I think he's closer to the Ron Rivera side where it's like, what do you do? And that's the
that's good. Because John Harbaugh is like a damn outlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like how many of those are there? Like who, like special teams guy?
I was thinking about this the other day. There's 3 types of NFL head coach, and I thought about this, and I went through all 32 teams and kind of broke them down into the 3. So there's the Parcells tree, which is the master motivator, old school angry coach. Your Belichick, your Sean Payton, your Mike Zimmer, Parcells going back. Then there's your schemer, your guy like Shanahan, Mike Holmgren, Andy Reid, Mike McDaniel, these types of guys. And then there's the, motivational Dan Campbell, Mike Tomlin type guy. And you try to drop all of these guys
usually
into buckets.
Usually
defensive guys, but sometimes you'll have like a Dan Campbell who's more of an offensive guy, but he's a motivational guy.
Dan Campbell, like you think about it, like he is an offensive guy, but he's a defensive guy. Like there's no way he's not a defensive guy. Like, no, he played offense. He knows offense.
He played tight end.
Yeah.
But it's like there's those three buckets. And if you don't fit in any of those, you usually suck. And I'm looking at Sirianni and I'm saying, okay, is he a Parcells, Mike Zimmer type motivator that chews people out? Maybe. Is he a schemer? Absolutely freaking not. Is he, a motivator guy who's like a, players coach, like Campbell,
can't be if your players don't.
Exactly. So where does he fit into those three tiers? I don't think he does. And this whole Colin Cowherd thing today, they got all that play on Fox. I mean, I really do think that you're right. There is a chance that he could be let go because this slide has been so massive. Like if there was a blip, say they beat Dallas, in one of those games a few weeks ago, then sure, you'd be like, say that game where they did beat Dallas, they won by like 24 instead of 6. Maybe that saves him. But they haven't been good since early October, like mid-October. This has been a hell of a slide.
See, the thing is, you start to look at their games and what win do they have that's impressive?
They beat the Vikings by 6.
That's my point.
It's like
granted, that was when they had Kirk but was it though? Because didn't the Vikings turn it over 5 times?
We had 28 points with 5 turnovers. We could have scored 40 plus.
That's not good if you're Philly. And they're like, oh, we went in the road and beat the defending champs. And well, the Chiefs have kind of had the worst season of their era. God, I hate that I use that word.
And remember the earlier in the season, they
barely beat Buffalo at home. It took a 59-yarder in the rain to send it to overtime when Buffalo was absolutely in shambles.
Both games against Washington, I believe they won by 3 points. Man,
rocked by Dallas in Dallas, rocked by the Niners.
Yeah.
Okay, you beat Miami.
Rocked by the Giants in the first half.
Your win on Sunday Night Football at home against Miami looks worse every week.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And their wins against Dallas. I mean, look at what Dallas has done against good teams, boat race by the Niners, beaten by Miami. I mean, there's a really good case for Sirianni being let go. And I can't believe I'm saying that for a guy who went 14-3 and won the NFC last year. So there's Joey's Jack in the Bum of the Week for Week 18, the final regular season one, Nick Sirianni. Let's go to the You Like That picks of the week. Last week, we went 2-3 to finish the regular season 47, 39, and 4. So over 500, not too bad for a regular season. Our futures, though, those are done. The season is over. We went 5-2-1. We actually did pretty well for our preseason picks from our 4 preseason pods. We had Indy under 6.5. That didn't get there. Atlanta under 8.5. That did. We picked Buffalo to win the division. That got there. We picked Washington under 6.5. That got in. Baltimore over 10.5. We won. Raiders over 6.5. We won. Seattle over 9. We pushed. And then the Vikings over 8.5. We lost. So 5-2-1 on the preseason picks. Not too bad. We'll take that any day of the week. So all things considered, a really good season betting wise. Let's try to keep that going into super wild card weekend. I have 5 picks here. I'm just going to rattle them off for you, Joey, and you tell me where you think I could maybe switch. So we got Miami +4. Again, I like the run game. I like, Kansas City to kind of falter a little bit here with the way they've been playing towards the end of the season. I like Buffalo -9.5 just because Pittsburgh without TJ Watt, I believe their record without him during his career is something like 3-16. So I like Buffalo to win by margin there, even with the bad weather. Dallas -7 at home. I just think Green Bay's defense is terrible. Ask any Packer fan what they think about their defense, and they'll say, fire Joe Brady or Joe, what the hell is his name? Not Joe Brady, Joe Barry. They absolutely want to get rid of that guy. So they hate his guts. So give me Dallas -7. And then your lock of the millennium, Rams +3.5. We have to take that one. And then I'll take a flyer on Tampa Bay +3 with how Philly's been sliding. So of those 5, which one worries you the most, and would you switch it for something else?
Probably Miami.
So if we're going to take,
I wouldn't switch it.
so Cleveland -3, Houston +3, Kansas City -4. Is there any of those that you prefer to Miami?
No, that's the thing. No,
That's the problem. Is like I wanted to take Houston maybe as the fifth one there, but again, Cleveland's defense is going to travel into that dome no problem, and Myles Garrett's going to be in the backfield all game. So I think we'll stick with those. Let's try to rattle off a good start to the playoffs. Like I mentioned, we're 47, 39, and 4 in 2023, including 5, 2, and 1 on futures now that those are graded. Looking for a winning Super Wildcard weekend. Miami +4, Buffalo -9.5, Dallas -7, the Rams +3.5, and Tampa Bay +3. Those are your You Like That picks of the week. Joey, it's time for your Feels Great Baby, your wildest take you feel best about currently. This isn't really a wild take, but you have been talking about this for weeks and weeks, and you're going to go out on a limb and make a call in one of these Super Wildcard games.
Yeah, not my most wild take, but it's definitely the thing I feel the strongest about, and that's the Rams rolling into Detroit and ruining their party because, yeah, I think the Rams are the dangerous team in the postseason that's, outside of the Ravens and Niners. Yeah, I think the ultimate X factor, the guy that changed everything for me, because I wouldn't have said this last year or even their Super Bowl year, the guy that changed everything is Kyren Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a humongous problem. Everything that is in the Shanahan scheme that McVay runs through the play action, running back, outside, inside zones, and he is, come from essentially nowhere to being what I think is now very clearly the second best running back in football.
I got to see him play in that Rams-Browns game down here in LA, and he's magical. Like that dude, he has the Shady McCoy cut, but he also has the vision, and it's really impressive.
Yeah, he almost feels like a guaranteed 2 touchdowns a game. Like he feels like Adrian Peterson in his prime or something. Like he just walks off the
he's
bus
a good receiver too.
And here comes a $150 and 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just, on top of that, I was all like, oh, the Rams, they got old real quick, and it's back to being Niners in Seattle division, and it's like, okay, Seattle definitely underachieved this year, but
McVay can coach.
yeah, but so can Pete, and it's like, they weren't awful, but yeah, McVay it's like as a Niner fan, where the hell did Kyren Williams come from, and then who the fuka is Puka Nacua, and why is he so good? And then, Cooper Kupp's healthy, and then Stafford, holy shit, that he can still throw it.
Yeah, his elbow has some problems. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. They fixed it. Put a bionic elbow and whatever they did. I don't know. Aaron Donald's still, a force. And the guys they've taken and developed in the draft on defense, the young guys that no one's really ever heard of, are playing very well, which is a testament to
Raheem Morris.
Coach him and the GM.
Les Snead.
Yeah, I think Kyle today said if he was hiring a coach for a team, he would hire Raheem Morris. He'd be the guy he would hire.
Mm-hmm.
I think he said that today or yesterday. I don't know, one of the times, because I think they mentioned he got interviews coming up. Hopefully he takes them and accepts the job and is very distracted from his current duties as defensive coordinator of the LA Rams. But yeah, they look really good.
Their defense, particularly the back seven, is the thing that'll keep them from making a run in the playoffs. But like you said, they got elite wide receivers, probably a top 2 or 3 running back, probably one of the top 3 quarterbacks left in the bracket. It's a dangerous team if they block well, and if
I freaking love Brock Purdy. Ain't no way in hell he can sling it at his best as good as Stafford.
There's a reason that Stafford was picked number 1 and Purdy was picked 262.
Like there's sometimes like the draft, oh, what a crapshoot, like screw it, they should have picked this guy earlier, Purdy, and it's like, well, he doesn't look like Matthew Stafford, who went first. He's not as big. He doesn't have the arm strength. He doesn't have the only thing he's better than Matthew Stafford at is like maybe a little bit of mobility. Like Stafford has never been able to really been the most mobile guy, but he probably was when he was younger a bit, like not now, but if the offensive line keeps him upright, it's going to be a long day.
And at one of your favorite sayings, he has an absolute hose.
Like hose. It's
and
like there's some people, like I said, like Kyler Murray throws a beautiful ball. Stafford, like it looks just so effortless.
Mm-hmm.
Like Josh Allen has a cannon, but like I don't know, it doesn't look as
it's
effortless.
violent. Right.
It's violent,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. It's like I always say, it's the Kaepernick like violent arm. Mm-hmm. Stafford is like Verlander, and it just comes out gas. And I'm like, and it's like when it's accurate, you're just like, oh my God, that's high level $50 million. Like that's what that's supposed to look like. Like, oh, I haven't seen that as much as I love Purdy. Like that was like a 20-yard out route, like absolutely put like in about this space of, yeah.
I love how we spend, just years and years trying to dissect whether a quarterback has it or not. And yet still after 25, 30 years of watching football, when we see a guy like Stafford or Favre throw a ball that's like 90 miles an hour right on a dart, we're just like, oh my God, we're never going to have that ever.
Like, it just, I don't want to bang on this guy who's already been bagged enough, but like, does that look like Bryce Young?
Number 1 overall pick.
It doesn't even look like CJ Stroud, who's had a damn good year.
Stroud has an absolute cannon, by the way.
He does. He absolutely does.
He did some back foot and no foot, like in the air throws against Indy. And I had watched some Stroud this year. I hadn't watched like full games.
That was the most I've watched of
cannon.
Him. Oh. Yeah.
Same with Richardson too. And yet Carolina was like, let's go with the guy who doesn't have elite.
Everyone got fired.
Ooh. So there's Joey's Feels Great Baby. The Rams will upset Detroit and ruin the party there at Ford Field on Sunday. Let's close the pod. I want to do a quick discussion about the A's. So there's been some updates here. Obviously, there's like the fan-related stuff. The A's the A's fans are hosting their own fan fest since the A's don't do it anymore, and they're going to take all the proceeds from that.
Oh, they don't?
Yeah, of course they don't. They have no interest.
Guess what? That'd be awkward.
So the fans are doing it themselves, and they're taking all the proceeds from that and donating it towards this Schools Over Stadiums initiative, which if you subscribe to the pod, I put that as one of the links when you click on our episodes. So donating to them makes it almost impossible for John Fisher to get that $380 million that he got from the Nevada state government, because there is going to be a vote in November of this year of 2024 as to whether that state bill that gave that $380 million to John Fisher will be repealed. And according to all sources, it's going to be on the ballot. And if it is on the ballot, it is going to get removed. So I think it's almost certain at this point, based on recent developments with both that and some news that's come out about Fisher not having the actual money to be able to push this deal over. He needs to provide like $1.2 billion of his own money. He apparently is worth about $300 million outside of the A's as his primary investment. Everything is apparently falling through just like us Oakland fans hoped it would. The only problem is it looks like he's certain to sell the team at some point in between now and 2025. The question is MLB going to try to save face and have him sell to a Las Vegas-based company to push this over the line, or is there any chance for the Bay Area here? So I know you're not following as much as I am and as my brother is and all our diehard A's fan friends are, but the season's coming up here in 2.5 months, and we just need to get this shit taken care of. Like, we can't have this 2024 final season.
You absolutely
in Oakland.
Can, because there's been no because this shit should have happened like 3 years ago or something. Like, I don't know. I mean, there's death taxes and like whatever that saying is. Like, this is the opposite of that. Like, there's just no guarantees of anything happening anytime. I don't know. It is such a weird thing. I don't know. It's so weird.
Well, you have experience going back to like '06. Like this is the 9th or 10th time there has been a, hey, here it is. Here is the A's final stadium situation. First it was, Cisco Field in Fremont. Then it was going to be in San Jose. Then there was going to be Coliseum City. Then there was going to be Howard Terminal Waterfront. Then there was going to be Peralta Community College by Laney over there by Lake Merritt. Then there was going to be Howard Terminal again. Then they were going to buy half of the Coliseum site and turn that into like parks and apartments and shit after the A's moved to the Oakland waterfront. None of this stuff ever happened, partly because, there was feet dragging, but mostly because of the incompetence of A's ownership. So I've been saying ever since the vote happened that basically put the nail in the coffin where MLB said, the A's are allowed to move to Vegas. We're not going to make them pay the relocation fee that we've made previous teams pay. I was like, oh shit, it's over. Unless Fisher blows it again for like the 5th or 6th time. And it sure freaking looks like it's going to happen. So they had a meeting, I believe it was December 5th or 6th, where the A's were going to meet with the City Council of Las Vegas, various local stakeholders there, casino folks, and unveil their actual renderings of the stadium, not the shitty AI ones they made for the bill vote. They said, oh, we're postponing that because there was a shooting of 2 Las Vegas police officers. That was 37 days ago, and they haven't announced that they're going to actually show those renderings. And from what I read from all the people in Vegas who move the money around, the casino folks, local sports business writers, the city is fully out on John Fisher, and they want nothing to do with him. So he's going to sell the team. I mean, what I've been asking for the last decade, it is going to happen. The only question at this point is it going to be to a Las Vegas buyer, or is it going to be to a Bay Area someone that can come in? Like, please, Joe Lacob, please. I literally, I'll wire him 10 grand right now to help buy the team. Like, please. If Joe Lacob buys the A's, my life is just 1,000 times better. We're getting to that point where you're just begging at this point. But I mean, looking at it from afar, you have to be like, why can't we just get this shit done, right? But I mean, the saga just drags on.
Just for the sake of everybody, like, have some sort of something happen. There's too many people invested, wasting valuable time, like, with their emotions. Like, it just, yeah.
The people of Oakland don't deserve this. I think Vegas, sure, give them an expansion team, give Las Vegas frankly, I think they deserve a basketball team long before they deserve a baseball team. Like, Vegas and basketball would get along great. Vegas and baseball, it's not going to be a baseball town. And if it is, it won't be for a while until the population grows a little bit there. Right now, they're like the 34th biggest media market in the U.S. and the Bay Area.
I love Las Vegas and everything, but yeah, I saw that. I was like, I thought they were a bigger media market.
34th. And I think that's because most of baseball money comes from local revenue. Not a great bet. If they want an expansion team, I feel like the Vegas Golden Knights method can work for baseball, but it needs to be a Vegas owner and a Vegas-born team. If it's someone moving from someone else, it's going to be a shit show.
I freaking hate them. But, like, everything they've ever done as a franchise, for the most part, has been, like,
first class.
How you would do it.
Yeah. And that's I mean, if I'm a Vegas sports fan, that's how I want to get.
The only thing I've even remotely heard is, like, sometimes they've been pretty brutal, or, like, I don't want to say brutal, but, like, very, very transactional with some of their players. Like, how they got rid of Fleury.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some Vegas people say, like, really, you're going to treat him like that? And, like, I just knew, like, the GM a couple times. Like, I know one time traded a dude on his, like, near his, like, on his, might have been on his wedding or something like that. Or, like, he was, yeah, and just didn't call, like, they're finding out like that. But other than that, like, as a business thing, that's a player, that's like hockey department.
Mm-hmm.
And they won, so, like, who cares? But, like, as a business thing, like, the owner down has been, like, I mean, they're like a top 5 hockey market in Vegas. Like,
It's
huh?
it's how you. It's literally to a
Hey, but
T how you would draw it up.
look at the Warriors. Like, I mean, yeah, cool. We have a big media market, and like, there's a lot of basketball fans here, but like, the Warriors were a freaking joke, absolute joke.
From the
And
mid '90s till 2010.
owner comes in and is like, no, we're gonna freaking win, and like actually mean it. Like, hire the right people, like cut the checks.
Build the stadium without any opposition.
Yeah, I mean, it's
When
all
you
about
have
the owner. It's
it
all
really
about
is.
the owner, which
And
sucks as a fan because it's like only one freaking owner. Like, if you have one bad player, if you're like, okay, right tackle is a liability, but like we got a lot of good players.
it's
Owner,
only
it's
one
like,
owner.
and they can't fire themselves.
They can only Donald Sterling themselves.
I was just about to say, I'm like, well, they could do something, but like, you don't want that either.
They could Donald Sterling or Jim Irsay their way into something, but that's the latest development on the A's. I'm hoping that Fisher sells to a Bay Area buyer. It's clear he's, not got the capital to get that job over the line. I think him and Cavill are realizing this is the end of the line. So
Isn't that just like a kick in the dick? Like, for like, who cares about John Fisher? But just like, kind of one of those things when you show up to like a billionaires meeting and you're like, oh shit, I'm only a millionaire.
and did you see the story? So this was at the owners' meetings where they voted to allow the A's to move to Vegas. And a bunch of A's fans did find John Fisher and Dave Cavill eating dinner. And Fisher's response to the A's fans were like, why are you ripping our team away from us? He goes, I promise you things are worse for me than they are for you. And I'm like, what a thing for a billionaire to say. But it's like, he actually kind of meant it, because like this is a guy who had several $1 billion, and his company that he inherited from his mom, The Gap. I don't know if you're a guy who shops at The Gap. I don't know anyone who shops at The Gap. Their stock prices dropped like 90% in the last decade. So like this is a guy who had billions and now doesn't. So it's like, fuck you, John Fisher. Like, take your couple hundred million.
like if me being outpriced on something, and like I consider myself like a very like well fortunate, like I don't live like unfortunately a lot of people live. Like I can afford nice ish things occasionally. But like me getting outpriced, it's like, oh, like it doesn't bother me. Like but like when it feels like the more money you get, the more offensive it is to you to like be told, nah, you don't have enough.
As they say, more money, more problems.
Yeah, it is. It's just like, it's like, yeah. Just like, why doesn't like Bezos or somebody like own a team? And I actually think that the other owners would like never allow that to happen, because they'd be like, welcome to the National Football League presented by Amazon. And this is the Amazon boxes team based in Seattle, and they also own and play in the NFC Amazon division. Like everything would just be Amazon, because like that's how big Amazon is. And the other owners would be like, yeah, no, like,
yeah, and the Palo Alto Teslas against the Amazon boxes, yeah.
Like
yeah,
we're like, it's already big business, but that would be like a whole level of big business like we don't want to see sports get to.
Yeah. And like Paul Allen would probably be the richest guy to ever own a sports team, and he was super hands off. And I'm sure that was the NFL being like, don't fuck around. Like, we'll let you be in this group, but don't dick around with this, because obviously there's like a whole nother level of screw you rich that some of these guys are. But come on, Joe Lacob, come save the day. A's fans need you. Apparently he's had a standing offer to buy the team for God knows how long, and just put that offer in, save the day. I know he'd be able to.
Are you confident he would keep it in Oakland?
I'm confident he'd keep it in the Bay Area. Like there's no way in hell he would take it out of a big media market. So, because he's smart and he's a smart businessman and he's made billions of dollars.
I used to be like, what if he buys it and moves it like he did the Warriors?
Well, he ain't moving him to San Francisco, but if he moved him to San Jose, fine, whatever. I'll just take it, And he's a guy who gives a shit, and we haven't had that since the mid 1970s. So. Tough spot for the A's, but getting a little bit better. We'll see how it goes. We'll be back next week for more actual football talk. We'll go over the Super Wildcard Weekend results and look forward to the Niners matchup in the divisional round. We'll see if they get the early Saturday game or maybe a late Sunday game. depending on how things break out this weekend. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back for 3 more pods before the end of the season. It's been fun to cover the 2023 football season with you. We'll see you again next week, and thanks for listening, subscribing, and liking.